Hello everyone, this is Yajmin Pearl Angela Tiraba. I'm going to report Chapter 3. What is ecology? Ecology is the study of relationships among organisms and between organisms in the physical environment. These relationships influence many aspects of the natural world, including the distribution and abundance of organisms, the variety of species living together in a place, and the transformation and flow of energy in nature. Ecology can also be defined in a variety of other ways, such as the scientific study of interaction that determine the distribution of geographic location and abundance of organisms. No matter how far from the natural world our day-to-day activities takes us, people, like all other organisms on Earth, are part of an interconnected web life. Let's turn now to the study of these connections. The Encyclopedia of Life, the connection of where it first begins. First, let's start with the cell, the basic unit of life. A cell can grow to every living organism such as animals, people, plants, and even microorganisms. Without the cell, life will never exist, and ecology will never be determined. From cell, organisms nor species are made up. Organisms are any form of life, while species are groups of organisms that resemble one another in appearance, behavior, chemistry, and genetic makeup. There are 4 to 100 million species on Earth. Most known species are microorganisms that are too small to be seen with the naked eye. There are 1,412,000 known species: insects, animals, plants, fungi, and prokaryotes. An individual being can make more populations into interaction, build their own habitat, and can create a community of different species. For example, the class went on a trip to a fresh pond. When the class arrived at the pond, they saw mallard ducks, pecan ducks swimming around the cocktail plants and across the water lilies, while frogs jumped upon the water lilies and over the ducklings. Together, they filled the fresh pond with life. The students were tasked to pick and observe an ecosystem and take note of all the organisms that can be found in it. Based on the given example, how can you classify these organisms as a population and as a community? Population. A freshwater pond has multiple populations, including a population of mallard ducks, pecan ducks, and frogs, and a population of cocktail plants growing on the edge and water lilies all over the pond. Community is the mallard ducks, pecan ducks, frogs together with the cocktail plants and water lilies. Now, let's go to ecosystem. Ecosystem is built up of communities of different species interacting with one another and with their non-living environment of matter and energy. Moreover, ecosystem is the home of species, where they can find shelter and food and can grow their population to avoid extinction. Lastly, the global ecosystem that composed of living organisms and non-living factors from which they derive energy and nutrients. The biosphere. Without every single organism nor species, an individual species may not exist, and if there is no individual, there is no population and community that may grow, and if there is no community, there will be no ecosystem, and the biosphere will be nothing because it can provide energy of life, but to nothing. Moreover, there is no world for us to live in. That is the reason why cell is the basic unit of life, and the biosphere is the giver of life. What keeps us and other organisms alive? Earth is our support system of life. Life is sustained by the flow of energy from the sun to the biosphere, the cycling of nutrients within the biosphere, and gravity. Earth has four major life support components. First, the atmosphere. Atmosphere is a layer of a set of layers of gases surrounding a planet or other material body that inhaled in a place by the gravity of that body, and it is a thin envelope of air around the planet. The atmosphere is divided into layers based on temperature changes that occur at different distance above the Earth's surface. Troposphere. Troposphere is a layer of atmosphere that starts on the Earth's surface and extends to 1.5 kilometers high. This part of the atmosphere is most dense. Almost all weather is in this region. Stratosphere starts just above the troposphere and extends to 50 kilometers high. The ozone layer, which absorbs the scatters the solar ultraviolet radiation in this layer. Mesosphere. The mesosphere starts above the stratosphere and extends to 85 kilometers high. Meteors burn up in this layer. Thermosphere starts just above the mesosphere and extends to 600 kilometers high. Aurora and satellites occurs in this layer. Ionosphere. The ionosphere is the abundant layer of electrons and ions, atoms, and molecules that stretches from 48 kilometers above the surface of the edge of space and about 965 kilometers overlapping into the mesosphere and thermosphere. The ionosphere is a critical link in the chain of Sun-Earth interaction. This region is what makes radio communication possible. Exosphere. Exosphere is the upper limit of our atmosphere. It extends from the top of the thermosphere up to 10,000 kilometers high. Here is the troposphere, the bottom layer. Next is the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the ionosphere, thermosphere, and the exosphere. Next is second component is the hydrosphere or water. Hydrosphere consists of Earth's water. A hydrosphere is the total amount of water on a planet. The hydrosphere includes water that is on the surface of the planet, underground, and in air. On Earth, liquid water exists on the surface in the form of oceans, lakes, and rivers. It also exists below ground as underground water in wells and in wells. Water vapor is most visible as clouds and fog. Liquid water, surface and underground, ice, polar ice, icebergs, and permafrost. Water vapor, gas in the atmosphere, just like clouds and fogs. Water moves through the hydrosphere in a cycle. Water collects in clouds, then falls to Earth in the form of rain or snow. This water collects in rivers, lakes, and oceans. The water then evaporate into the atmosphere to start the cycle all over again. This is called the water cycle. Third component, geosphere or rock. Geosphere is all land and rock the planet is made of. The hard rock on the surface of the earth or crust, the molten magma inside the earth or in the mantle, the mountains that stand tall above the sea level or surface, the hard and cold rocks, minerals, and all kinds of hard or molten structures inside the earth, including the core, form the geosphere. The earth can also be divided into layers: crust, mantle, and core. Crust. The crust is part of geosphere that has varied layers of density and thickness. It is comprised of oceanic crust and continental crust, although it is made up of different types of minerals and rocks. The crust mostly consists of oxygen, calcium, aluminum, sodium, silicon, potassium, magnesium, and iron. Next, the core. The core is the portion of the geosphere that lies beneath the mantle, mostly consisting of iron. The core has two different parts with varied thickness, while the outer core, the liquid part has a thickness of 2,250 km. The thickness of the inner core, the solid part, is 1,220 km. Lastly, the mantle. The mantle is the region that can be found just below the crust. It has two parts: the thin and less dense upper mantle, called the asthenosphere, and the denser and thicker lower mantle. The upper mantle and the crust combine together to form lithosphere. The fourth component, the biosphere, living things. Biosphere is made up of the part of Earth where life exists. The biosphere extends from the deepest root system of trees to the dark environment of ocean trenches, to lush rainforests and high mountain tops. All of Earth's living things and all of Earth's ecosystem together. Scientists describes that Earth in terms of spheres. The solid surface layer of the Earth is the lithosphere, and the atmosphere is the layer of air that rests above the lithosphere. The Earth the earth water on the surface is the ground, and in the air makes up of hydrosphere. Since life exists on the ground, in the air, and in the water, the biosphere overlaps all these spheres, although the biosphere measures around 20 kilometers from the top to bottom. Almost all life exists between 500 meters below the ocean surface to about 6 meters and above sea level. An additional component is the anthroposphere. It is the environment of the terrestrial surface inhabited by humans. Its definition comes from the word anthropo, from the Greek anthropos, which means man, and the word sphere, which refers to the earth or terrestrial sphere. Example: urban, rural, and residential areas. Life exists on land and water. The biome and aquatic life zone. Biome is a large area characterized by its vegetation, soil, climate, and wildlife. There are five major types of biomes: aquatic, grassland, forest, desert, and tundra. Aquatic biomes include both fresh water and marine biomes. Freshwater biomes are bodies of water surrounded surrounded by land, such as ponds, rivers, and lakes, that have salt water content of less than 1%. Marine biomes cover close to three-quarters of Earth's surface. Marine biomes include the ocean, coral reefs, and estuaries. Grasslands are open regions that are dominated by grass and has a warm, dry climate. There are two types of grasslands. Savannas or tropical grasslands are found closer to the equator and can have a few scattered trees and cover almost half of the continent of Africa, as well as areas of Australia, India, and South America. Temperate grasslands are found further away from the equator in South Africa, Hungary, Argentina, Uruguay, North America, and Russia. They do not have any trees or shrubs and receive less precipitation than savannas. Prairies and steppes are two types of temperate grasslands. Prairies are characterized as having taller grasses, while steppes have shorter grasses. Forests are dominated by trees and cover about one-third of Earth. Forests contain much of the world's terrestrial biodiversity, including insects, birds, and mammals. Tropical forests are warm, humid, and found close to the equator. Temperate forests are found at higher latitude and experience all four seasons. Boreal forests are found at even higher latitudes and have the coldest and driest climate, where precipitation occurs primarily in the form of snow. Deserts are dry areas where rainfall is less than 50 centimeters per day. They covered around 20% of Earth's surface. Desert can be either cold or hot, although most of them are found in subtropical areas. Desert wildlife consists of primarily of reptiles and small mammals. Desert can fall into four categories according to their geographic location or climatic conditions: hot and dry, semi-arid, coastal, and cold. Lastly, tundra has extremely inhospitable conditions with the slowest measured temperatures of any of the five major biomes, with average yearly temperatures ranging to -34 to 12 degrees Celsius. The Arc- Arctic tundra is found north of boreal forests, while the alpine tundra is found on mountains where the altitude is too high for trees to survive. Life Earth depends on three interconnected factors. The three factors that sustain life on Earth. The one-way flow of high-quality energy, cycling of matter or nutrients, and gravity. The one-way flow of high-quality energy from the sun through material and living things and their feeding interaction into environment as low-quality energy, and eventually back into space, heat. No round trip are allowed because energy cannot recycle. 2. Second, the cycle of matter. The atoms, ions, or compounds needed for survival by living organisms. True parts of biosphere, because of the Earth is close to significant inputs of matter from space, essentially fixed supply of nutrients must be continually recycled to support life. All nutrients trips in ecosystem are round trips. Lastly, gravity, which allows the planet to hold on its atmosphere and enables the movement of chemicals between the air, water, soil, and organisms in the matter of cycles. What happened to solar energy reaching the Earth? Solar energy flowing through the biosphere warms the atmosphere, evaporates and recycles water, generates wind, and support plant growth. About 1 billion of sun's output of energy reaches the Earth. A tiny sphere is the vastness of space. In the form of electromagnetic waves, mostly as visible light, much of this energy is either reflected away or absorbed by chemical in planet's atmosphere. Most solar radiation making it through the atmosphere is degraded into lower wavelength infrared radiation. This radiation encounters the so-called greenhouse gases in the troposphere. As it is interacts with these gaseous molecules, it increases their kinetic energy, helping warm the troposphere and Earth's surface. Without these natural greenhouse effects, the Earth would be too cold for life as we know to exist. Everything is linked to everything else. What does this quote mean? This quote means that from every cell to every organism, by building an ecosystem and to the life support of Earth, everything is equal to life.